And that, friends, is where the rubber meets the road. It's quite a relief after Lagos. I really want to ask Ted just to talk about some of the places that, like Lagos, for instance, but where, I don't know what conceptions you went into it with, but in Lagos, for instance, he was camping out with a roadside ambulance crew. Now, at what point you figured out, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll go to, these ambulances that are very few in Lagos, and it's sort of a new idea in a city of 15 million. And they just parked by the side of the road in this sort of wild area where these area boys are lurking. I don't know if you figured that out there or before. But before I ask that question, to talk a little about Lagos, how you chose these. I mean, there's a pattern to them. There's a sequence. There are themes. If you could say a little bit about what the themes you were trying to get at with these different stories.
Sure. It's not a random assortment of roads. It's not just where I happen to go. This book began in a couple of places. One is my previous book, which was an experience of confinement, which made me long for the opposite. So I really did want to get going somewhere and move a little. And by serendipity, I guess, I finally got a call from a magazine that I had tried to get an assignment from for years, which was National Geographic. Right out of college, I was sure that was the place that I belonged, and invested considerable energy trying to convince them of that. Got, in fact, taken to lunch by 6 editors there, where I drank my first martini ever, and my second. And it wasn't until dessert that they kind of remembered I was there and asked for my ideas, and unfortunately they felt they had done all of them. So fast forward to about 7 years ago when I got a call asking if I'd be interested in writing about this road that would connect the east and west coasts of South America for the first time, and I thought, well, how exciting to get this call, but what a boring subject. To write about infrastructure, that just seems ponderous, and I said I would call her back, and I slept on it and spent another day and thought some more, and then I realized you could write about roads not from the perspective of engineering so much as from the perspective of their power, what a road means and what a road does, and how it changes the lives of people on it or near it, and even the non-human life crossing it or adjoining it. And I thought, if you could write about that side of it, that could be interesting. And I asked her if I could, and she said, "Sure, whatever you like." And she said, "And how much money do you think you'll need for your transportation, for the car that's going to drive you around the jungle?" And I said, "I don't want a car to drive me around the rainforest. I didn't want an expedition. I wanted to go there with the way people were going there already." So I crossed the Andes on a truck. It ended up being a fuel truck that was taking generator fuel down into the rainforest, and on top of it, people ride because there's no good bus system. So basically, they're on this flammable bus that is driving on dangerous roads. They were really nice people. I liked them a lot. A lot of them were poor people who lived in the Andes and found jobs basically cutting wood down in the rainforest. And I thought there are a bunch of interesting stories here. So when I came back, I was talking with a writer friend who commented, "This is not your first piece about roads." And I said, "I know, I've done 1 or 2 others." And he said, I can think of 4. And it was his idea, actually, George Packer, that a book about roads could be more than the sum of its parts. So I sat down and thought what that might mean, and I thought of how you could start with a simple road in Peru, like even just a path, which is what this road was when I got there. And you could end up in a really complicated place, which I first thought might mean New York. But then I thought, well, even better would be someplace not planned and orderly, like New York actually seems to me now. It didn't before, but it seems very safe and quiet now that I've been to Lagos. And I thought I want to end up in a place like that. And along the way, I wanted to see other things roads can do. How do roads work in war with an occupation? How do roads work in terms of isolated people who want to see the outside world, such as I found in Ladakh? How do they work in China right now, where you've got this incredible excitement over the arrival of cars everywhere and the ability to drive your own car and go fast, really, really fast sometimes. And I thought there are some sort of profound ideas lurking in all this, and I could make them interesting by participating, by traveling on the roads myself. So just to answer your other question, Bill, the ambulances, I had that idea before I left.
Oh.
Yeah. And I thought, the urgency of an emergency vehicle on a road where you can't go fast because there are so many cars is inherently interesting. And medical services in a place where they're hard to get is interesting. And people responding to strangers on a road is interesting. And it took me a long time to get permission from the state government of Lagos to hang out with the ambulances, but it was worth it because I got to meet these great nurses and pilots, as they're called. The drivers of the ambulances are called pilots, and they're very brave. They strike up alliances with the street gangs that live under the bridges that they park on top of. They strike arrangements with the police who gently shake down the cars that exit the highway on the ramp by the ambulance. There's a whole ecosystem that they're part of that was so interesting. And I guess you could go to a place like that and think, the planet is hurtling to its death, but the feeling I came away with from Lagos is the world is full of so many amazing people, and so many of them are ingenious and determined to carve out a place for themselves, no matter how hostile or how great the forces arrayed against them. So I thought that, it's a really cool place, and as long as you're careful and can avoid being the victim of crime, you can have a great time there.
Wow. The ambulance crews do seem great. You haven't persuaded me that Lagos is a place to go to have a good time. It's at one point, and besides fear of crime, which is bad a lot of places, there's an unforgettable description in Lagos where Ted's going into town and he's in a kind of small taxi with about 12 people in it, and then a van taxi with the door off, and he's kind of hanging onto the bench, and it gets stuck in traffic. And some of these area boys, these gangsters, see him, and he describes himself as this white guy hanging out the cab that's now stuck in traffic as this peach hanging low, and they quit their soccer game and they're just rushing toward him while he's floundering on his branch, and they managed to get him out of there. But it doesn't. It's not a persuasive advertisement for, and neither is it in any way. There's nothing sentimental about it. You really like these people, but they seem to do not a lot of good for a lot of injured people. They kind of deliver them to hospitals where they kind of get some treatment, and you even end up saying,